Over the last 10 years, I have rebuilt my body from scratch over 30 times. After suffering from injuries from car accidents, I was forced to rebuild. Every time I began building momentum, I would get a flare up, and then, like a tornado, my autoimmune disease would destroy everything I had just built. It wasn't until I understood these 5 things that my rebuilds finally started to get faster. Lesson 1, if you increase your blood flow, you'll also speed up at a rate that you can recover. Think about this. Every single muscle fiber has its own house, and then they are supposed to receive nutrients so that they can do their job and repair. However, if there is a slow delivery, then they will also not have the supplies in order to repair themselves. However, if there are more delivery trucks on the highway going to each individual house, the muscle fibers, then they're able to receive the nutrients they need much faster so they can repair much faster and do their job. It is the same with your body. So the way that you can increase your blood flow is by increasing your capillaries, all the individual blood supply to the muscle. You can do this by increasing your aerobic capacity, by doing long form endurance training, where you can go on long runs or doing long rowing sessions or even on the bike. And by doing that, you're going to increase that blood flow. And then also through muscular endurance on the specific muscle itself. And it's also going to build up the ability to last longer without fatigue. And how you do that is that you do 15 reps and above, and you only give yourself about 30-second rests in between sets. Normally, this type of thing is frowned upon and not encouraged when people are strength training or bodybuilding. However, when you understand how the body works, you can understand all the systems are not separate, but they're built to work together. And when you increase one, oftentimes there are carryover into the other. So someone who is bodybuilding, like that was a passion of mine before, I did not maybe do as much long form endurance as I should have, but that would have increased my recovery even more. Every time I would rebuild using this method, it would increase my MRV, maximum recovery volume, and allow me to get into training faster and then be able to actually start building and getting into my harder workouts because I would have endurance, I would last longer before fatiguing, and I would have quicker recovery times, which would allow me to train harder the next session. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, a reminder to hit subscribe before we go on to the next one. So lesson number 2 is that you want to train the nervous system before you train the muscle. So what that means is most of the time after an injury, you don't actually lose a lot of your muscular strength, even though you're a lot weaker. The thing is, your nervous system is on protection mode after an injury, and it does not want you to re-injure it. So it limits your mobility and strength so that you do not put yourself into a dangerous range that your body cannot control. And then it limits your strength because it doesn't want you to do too much of a high load. For example, I broke my fingers when I was young and I had casts on both hands. And after I got out of those casts, I could not even do a push-up. And I was a bodybuilder at the time. I was only in the cast for about 30 days and I was still active. I was running. I even tried doing resistant bands with my casts on and doing that type of lifting, but I could not do a push-up. And so I had to start by doing wall push-ups and work myself up to doing a regular push-up. And at the time I could do 200 push-ups in a single set. So this was a big shocker for me. Unfortunately, I didn't understand that lesson until many times after rebuilding my body after car accidents. And the thing is, if you trigger a flare-up, you're gonna be set back to zero like I was, and you're gonna have to start climbing the ladder all over again. So train the nervous system before the muscle. How you do that is first, you build tolerance. Tolerance is just touching discomfort with an RPE around 6, meaning that you have 4 reps left in the tank, or maybe even less. And it should feel good without pain. And then the next day, you should not feel stiffer. If you feel stiffer, then you did too much. I have a video on building tolerance that I'll link below, but that is the summary of it. The other component is you want to train the end ranges of the injury, and you want to train either north or south of the joint itself, the surrounding muscles in their end ranges, and you want to get train your brain, your nervous system, that you can control the load in the end range. If it senses that you lack strength in the end range, it's gonna tighten it up and it's gonna limit your mobility. My back would be so tight after car accidents that sometimes I couldn't even touch my knees because everything was locking it down. So I could not bend my back because it was trying to protect me from injury. And as soon as I started to loosen it up again, then I would start feeling great. But it would only take me once to just overdo it a little bit. And it didn't even feel like it in my workout. I felt great. But after I woke up, then it would be so stiff and I couldn't move again. And then I had to go through this long period before I was able to finally relax and being able to move again. Once you have taught your nervous system that it is safe to move again, most people make the mistake of training on and on again, thinking that they're getting their strength back, only to find that their injury comes right back. That's because of the next lesson, number 3. It's more important to train movement patterns rather than a muscle group. So in bodybuilding, you try to focus on the muscle itself. You want to grow its size, you want to grow its strength. There is a lot of isolation training, trying to put the max load on the specific muscle that you're trying to grow. But there is a problem with this, is that your body is meant for all the muscles to work together. Think compound lifts where you have multiple joints working together. That's exactly what strength is. Strength, you can improve your strength without increasing any muscle size because the firing rate of your muscle gets fine-tuned. It's like if your engine does not have the firing tuned in just right, then it's going to have worse gas mileage and it's going to have poor performance. But when you get that timing just right, both of those things go up. So it's very similar with your muscle itself. If you don't train the specific movement pattern, then you're not going to be strong there. So for the bench press and the squat, most people train these type of movement patterns, but they neglect other movement patterns such as just bending over and touching your shoe. They don't train this area doing a Jefferson curl. Therefore, they are weak there, and that when they get put in that position, whether they're trying to get a bin out of a storage closet and bending over, that is where they're going to get injured in because they did not train their strength there. So when you are rebuilding your strength, you need to train the different types of movement patterns. And I will link a video below talking about the specific ones that you need to hit because there's a lot of them. But if you're not incorporating the different movement patterns into your training, you're going to have a weak link. And that weak link is going to be found in a life circumstance, and that is going to crack and break you, and then you're going to get injured. But when you strengthen those weak links and the different movement patterns, it's amazing how, one, your recovery goes up because now you're not putting unnecessary strain on yourself when you're just going about your day. And then 2, you're going to actually be able to prevent injury. So therefore, you're going to improve your strength faster without any setbacks. The last lessons are going to prevent you from going back to zero after you have already gotten back to where you were. The fourth lesson is that redlining every single day is foolish. Let me explain. The point of training is to stimulate a growth signal that whatever task that you're doing, you're not adequate enough, you're not strong enough, so your body needs to get stronger in order to do it. So you do not build muscle in the gym, you build muscle outside the gym when you are recovering. Your training should not be based off how hard you can push yourself every single day, but rather how fast you can recover from the training that you just did. It doesn't help if you are just destroying a muscle that is still not recovered, because then you are actually not building on top of that. So your recovery should be solely based off how fast you are recovering. For example, everybody knows that if you take steroids, you get growth hormones and you can recover so much faster. Therefore, you're able to do harder training more frequently and recover from it and get bigger and stronger. But if you are recovering slower, then you need to back off on your training. Or if you are feeling a bug coming on and you're getting sick, or you're just not feeling it that day, all these different types of feelings when you feel bad, they're all feedback that what you need to do to adapt your training. Sometimes your training, you should downshift and just coast and be able to get a workout done, and that will be able to flush your system and help it recover faster because of the blood flow. I've been following a system that has helped me to know when to open up the throttle and gun it, and when to downshift when I'm going around a turn and to hold back. And that has helped my training not only excel, but have less flare-ups and less setbacks. I've been working on an app that helps others do it the same way, but more simplistic. If you're interested in it, then I'll go ahead and put a link in the description and you can join the waiting list. Lesson number 5 is the difference between continued progression and losing it all. If you don't use it, you lose it. There is a law called the law of adaptation. Your body becomes what it repeatedly does, for better or for worse. So if you're sitting all day at a desk, you are getting weaker whether you like it or not. And during those hours, you're also not hitting different angles and ranges and movement patterns that you would if you were not sitting at a desk. Back in the day, people used to not sit in chairs. They used to just squat down, and still in other countries did do this. However, when I was rebuilding my body and I was trying to train myself to get in the deep squat position, I couldn't believe how hard it was to do so with a flattened back because of the mobility that I had been lost through my lifestyle circumstances. However, my son, he'll squat down at the sink because he can't reach the sink. So he has to climb up there and squat down to wash his hands. And he sits in the perfect squat. He moves so well. Why? Because he was born that way. He was born to move. However, through our lives of sitting in a car, in traffic all day, sitting at a desk, sitting in the classroom, all these different things shorten your hip flexors. So the same concept goes for any different types of training that you have done. Once you start to train end ranges and really bulletproof your body, preventing your weak links from taking over, then you want to hit those ranges every once in a while so you don't lose the strength that you have just achieved there. It's actually quite simple. The same concept is how CrossFit athletes become so incredible in so many different feats. They have incredible strength, incredible muscular endurance, and aerobic capacity, and being able to do multiple different tasks all at once in one short time frame. The reason why is because they trained and focused on one area at a time, but they never lost what they had already built while they're focusing on another. So incorporate it in your training as well, and you'll have less setbacks and more progression, and you'll find yourself having more performance and less pain, which means that you'll have a better quality of life. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe.